So we're gonna be watching The Loneliest Flight in the World by Ice 711.
If you've ever flown before, chances are you've glanced out your window and seen another plane flying by. As a frequent
One
flyer, I
time.
see other planes fly by almost every time I fly. But imagine looking outside your plane window for over 10 hours and not seeing a single contrail in the sky, let alone nothing but the seemingly endless ocean.
That'd be scary.
There are
10
very few
hours.
flight routes on this planet that are as remote as those in the South Pacific. In this region is located the world's loneliest flight path, a route that flies directly adjacent to the furthest point from all land on
Where's that even
planet
going?
Earth. LATAM Airlines Flight 800, connecting Sydney, Australia to Santiago, Chile via Auckland, New Zealand, takes passengers near the most remote location in the world, Point Nemo. Point Nemo is so remote that airliners are generally advised to not fly within 400 miles or 644 kilometers of the location.
The thing about Point Nemo is that if you do end up crashing there by any chance, if you do end up crashing like Point Nemo, you're pretty much dead. Because I think I heard the fact that a space station is closer to you than land if you're in Point Nemo. Because there's nothing for like hundreds of miles. If you end up crashing into that ocean, you are not getting saved. And if you do, you're very lucky if you make it out alive out of Point Nemo. If you end up crashing there, because most of the ships that land there, never seen again. Never seen again.
Is known as the oceanic point of inaccessibility. Point Nemo is 1,670 miles or 2,688 kilometers from land in all directions. This location on planet Earth is so remote that if an airliner such as LATAM Flight 800 were to fly directly over it, in the case of an onboard emergency, absolutely nobody would receive the aircraft's emergency squawk signals. The airliner would still be several hours away from any landmass capable of an emergency
So you're not
landing.
getting saved.
Due to the sheer inaccessibility of Point Nemo, LATAM Airlines Flight 800 commonly avoids the location by the 400-mile threshold to the south, with the closest landmass on this route being Antarctica. To get a perspective as to how remote this route over the South Pacific really is, the closest human beings wouldn't even be on planet Earth, but rather those on board the International Space Station.
I was talking
Unlike
about
what
that.
the name suggests, practically zero marine life exists around Point Nemo due to the lack of vital nutrients that usually exist near coastlines. Just imagine being
So
on
nothing
board this
lives there.
flight and something goes horribly wrong. You're practically thousands of miles and several hours away from any sort of relief. And as a matter of fact, this horrifying truth came closer to reality than ever before just last year. On the 11th of March 2024, LATAM Airlines Flight 800 departed Sydney for Santiago with its usual stop in Auckland along the way. En route to Auckland, over the Tasman Sea, just an hour away from the New Zealand coastline, the Boeing 787-9 suddenly dropped over 300 feet or 90 meters in just a few seconds. The cockpit screens went black, and dozens of passengers, along with loose items in the cabin, were thrown upward into the aircraft ceiling, damaging the cabin, and resulting in dozens of passenger injuries, including broken bones.
I feel like it'd be scarier to land in the middle of Point Nemo than any other ocean in the world. Because even though you might land in other oceans, there's a chance that you might still make it. But if you land in Point Nemo, you're dead.
The aircraft regained control, and the pilots successfully landed in Auckland. The preliminary report for this incident claimed that the captain's seat had involuntarily jolted forward, likely causing the 787 to nosedive, with many reports claiming it was some sort of a technical issue. While this was truly a horrifying event on its own, it's almost a miracle that this happened on the first leg of the journey to Santiago, from Sydney to Auckland, and not from Auckland to Santiago. Had this happened in the midst of the route over the South Pacific, passengers would be waiting several hours for medical care, and who knows what could have happened with the aircraft's technical issue. Well over 1,000 miles from a runway that could accommodate a Boeing 787.
I always wonder what it would feel like if you were nosediving down on a plane. Because I'm pretty sure that there's this thing that has like gravity zero. I don't know if you guys have seen those videos that they have gravity zero. So you pretty much go up and then you go down, which gives you that motion that it's zero gravity. So they're just kind of like floating, but in reality they're just like moving so fast that it feels like you're floating. You guys can look into it. It's pretty much a plane that just kind of nosedives down. So I wonder if that's what people feel like in like a plane crash that goes like from thousands of feet up in the air to just nosediving all the way down. If they have like that experience of zero gravity. But I don't know if you guys have ever been on a roller coaster where it goes like very fast, it goes down, like your stomach feels like that. I wonder if they felt that, but like 10 times worse because you're pretty much diving like I don't know, 30 meters in seconds or like 100 feet in like a few seconds. The entire football field in 1 second.
For not only is this route the loneliest flight path in the world, but also one of the scariest due to its sheer remoteness from humanity. However, it isn't just LATAM Airlines that offers service between South America and Oceania. Australian carrier Qantas also operates their Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner on the Sydney to Santiago route with no stop in Auckland.
No stop.
Due to the curvature of the Earth, flying from Sydney to Santiago oftentimes has the Dreamliner flying right along the coastline of Antarctica. The closest airstrip for an emergency landing in Antarctica along this route would likely be McMurdo Station. McMurdo Station is not permanently inhabited, and in the winter only hosts around 200 people with one small medical center. This fact makes Qantas flight QF27 from Sydney to Santiago also one of the world's most remote flights. Although the curvature of the Earth has the Sydney-Santiago route flying much closer to Antarctica than the Auckland-Santiago route, oftentimes both airliners will hug the coastline of Antarctica simply to have a feasible landing option in the case of an emergency. Imagine being stranded thousands of miles away from any landmass and an engine goes out. If I was flying in a plane with over 300 passengers, I'd want to be close to land too. ETOPS certification for the Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner states that the aircraft can still fly for over 5 hours with just one engine in operation, essentially making the daunting South Pacific route not quite as daunting. However, if both engines were to lose power, the aircraft would likely only glide for 100 miles or 160 kilometers, essentially meaning that if the airliner were cruising over the South Pacific, the pilots would have no other choice but to glide the airliner into the sea and only hope that rescue operators receive their emergency signals. However, the scenario of losing all engine power is highly unlikely and has only happened a handful of times in history. Regardless, these routes operated over the South Pacific are certainly some of the most daunting in aviation, despite there being numerous daily connections between South America and Oceania. Would you take a flight between the two continents? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments.
It is kind of cool that airplanes have that feature that if you do end up losing one engine, you can still fly with just one engine for up to 5 hours, according to the video. So I don't know how that's possible. I feel like the plane will just be flying in like a weird angle, like tilted, since one of them is not really working. But it somehow works, and I like that because it just makes you feel a lot safer when you're flying. But yeah, besides that, amazing video. I loved it, and I will not be taking a flight at all. I don't know why people want to do that. I feel like that's one of the most dangerous flights, and especially probably one of the most boring. Like when you look outside of a plane, you pretty much see like I don't know, maybe mountains, sometimes cool colored seas, but no, over there is just pretty much just straight ocean.